We now welcome to the lectern a succession of family and close friends to share with us some of their reflections and memories of Ken. And I'd like to invite first Brent Hall, Ken's oldest friend who travelled from Canada to attend Joanna's wedding this past weekend.
Well, good morning, everybody. For me, it's an honour and a great privilege to be able to speak to you today about a person who is a very close friend of mine, somebody I've known for almost 45 years. And when you think about it, that's almost equivalent to 2/3 of Ken's and my individual lives. So we've known each other for a long time, we've shared a lot of things in common, and it's very difficult to say goodbye to him today. Ken and I first met when we were studying as young undergraduates at the University of Otago in 1971. Ken was a Southlander, as you know, from Gore High, and I was a Dunedin boy, a townie, from that other high school up on the hill. At first, Ken and I were really just familiar faces that popped up in lectures in 2 or 3 courses that we shared together. But as first year progressed, we found ourselves in first year human and physical geography practical classes, and through conversation we gradually discovered that we actually had a lot more in common than our territorial origins might suggest. As we got to know each other through first year and then into second and third and fourth year, we developed a very strong and a very lasting friendship that was built around, as Michael has alluded, to all things sport, to a love and a passion for world and New Zealand geography, and also to the other activities that young men in their early 20s got up to in the 1970s, which really don't seem to have changed all that much through to the present time. When we graduated in 1975, we actually finished our course of study in 1974, but we graduated in 1975. In those days, the capping ceremony was different to who it is today, and we actually built a float together with a group of my friends from Dunedin, and we often have reminisced about that day of general debauchery that took place. I think it was 1 or 2 days after we were capped, fortunately. Ken, after his graduation from Otago, followed what was his vocation, to become a high school teacher, and I think testament to his prowess as a teacher is evident today at King's High School and also at Cargill High School and Whangarei Boys, where he also taught. My path took me on a different direction. I left New Zealand in 1975 and went to Canada to do graduate work and to follow after that a university-based career. However, Ken and I kept in touch for a number of years, and we met together again in the early 1980s with our respective spouses, mine Canadian, and perhaps predictably, Ken's a Southlander. Over the course of our own lives, geography and time caused us to drift apart. However, in 2007, when I received an email from Ken during his hip replacement convalescence, a broad smile burst out on my face, and our friendship that was initiated in 1971 was immediately rekindled. Over the last 8 years, Ken and I have spent quite a bit of time together between trips back and forth to Canada, and I've been very happy to have an old and a dear friend back in my life. But I've been even happier to meet Ken's 2 wonderful children, Michael and Joanna, and also to reconnect with Suzanne and renew the relationship that both my wife and I had with her. Last year, after a visit to Dunedin, we returned to Canada and we learned of Ken's illness shortly after we got back. For my wife and I, it was like a body blow to both of us. It was very hard to believe and hard to accept. Really just one of life's curves that's thrown at us, and we have to negotiate it and cope with it in whatever way we can. Given the seriousness of his illness, everyone, including Ken, knew that his time amongst us was limited. However, this didn't stop him teaching until it was impossible for him to go on. In this, he showed remarkable courage and dedication to the young men of King's High School, and he also showed to everybody remarkable determination and courage to take Joanna down the aisle last Saturday for her wedding to his new son-in-law, Phil. For me, his performance was nothing short of remarkable and is a testament to the man. When Michael and I took Ken back to the hospital after the wedding last Saturday, neither of us had any inkling, and I'm sure that goes for everybody else that was at the church. We had no idea that within 6 short days we would be here commemorating and remembering Ken and his life. In fact, up until Sunday, on the day of his death, Ken was making plans with his surrogate son from Germany, Sebastian, who Michael just spoke to attend Michael's wedding later this year. However, here we are today. Even at this very dark time, I doubt whether Ken, knowing him as we all do, would want us to mourn him. Rather, what Ken would want is for us to celebrate his life and to remember him in a way that gives each of us a little bit of the inner strength that he showed during the past year, and especially recently. So to help with this, what I would like to do is to pause for a moment. Just ask each one of you to find a memory of Ken, a time that you've shared with him that was special to you. Lock onto this memory, hold on to it, and use it in the future to give yourself a little bit of the inner strength that he showed, and also to provide the love and support that Ken would want each and every one of us to give to Suzanne, Michael, and Joanna as they navigate life's waters over the next days, weeks, months, and even years. So please join me just for a moment of silent reflection. Find a memory of Ken and leave today's commemoration with it in your mind and in your heart. Thank you. And now for me, the last part, which is in some ways the hardest part. In English, we have a very nondescript word for parting. We say goodbye to one another. And when you think about it, goodbye really doesn't mean very much. The Spanish have a much more emotive and expressive term when they part from one another. They say adios. And literally translated, adios means to God. So I would like to finish by bidding my good friend a fond adios. He may be gone from us in body, but his memory will live on with each of us forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. I'd now like to invite to the lectern Trevor Hodge. Trevor is Ken's cousin and has also travelled south from Canada to be with us today.
Good morning. As indicated, I'm Trevor, Ken's cousin. And Ken and I grew up together. We're both from Gore. We were the same age. We were both only children. We lived around the corner from one another, so played together all the time. We went to the same high school. We went to the same university. And believe it or not, we graduated with the same degree. And you guessed it, it was geography. We had many in fact, Suzanne was in my class when we were at university. We had many interests that were similar. Of course, our families had a lot of interaction together. Ken was part of not only the Bishop family, but also the Hodge, the Abernathy, and the Soper families. And when you add all those people up, it was an incredible, huge network of people from across rural Southland. So a lot of our social interactions playing together at that time happened within and around this huge extended family. And as a youngster, Ken was not only an excellent student, but he's also a competitive swimmer and an awesome singer and guitar player. In fact, Ken and my Auntie Joyce taught me how to swim. And like all Kiwi kids of that era, we all loved rugby, and we relished the opportunity to stay up all night to listen to the All Black Test matches, and that was on the radio. That was before TV. So Ken was no exception. He really loved rugby. The story I wanted to share with you, the memory, Brent, that I wanted to share was something that Ken and I, when I was visiting earlier this year, had a bit of a chuckle over. So I'll just share it with you. Each summer, Ken's parents would take their caravan and go camping. And I guess today they call it freedom camping. And they would go to like Piano Flat, Knobs Flat, Warry Creek, or some of the places that I remember where we would go visit them while they were camping. But always the location they went to was good for fishing. So our families all fished for brown rainbow trout and were very, very serious about it. To make my point, our families had what Ken and I used to call worm farms. And they're at our houses where we would actually keep a continuing supply of live bait of worms. And these weren't just any worms. These were, in fact, there was only one spot near Gore where you could find these worms. And they were big white worms and used them for fishing. So fishing for our families was a science. And the Bishops, the Hodges, were very good at it, and Ken was a very good fisherman. So one year, the Bishops camped up at Warry Creek, which is just south of where the Mararoa runs into the Waiau, and on Redcliffe Road. So in those days, the land hadn't been broken in at all. It was all bracken, matagari, and it was just one big open station that at that time was interestingly owned by the Spates family. So it was undeveloped land, and we'd all been out fishing for the day and came back to the Bishop's campsite in the afternoon for a visit and tea. And Ken and I were given free range, so basically to get out of our parents' hair. So we went up Warry Creek a bit, which was fairly dry in the summer, and we decided to build a dam. So after moving a huge number of rocks around, we got this dam built, we got all the water backed up, and we created two overflows, one down each side so that we would have water chutes. So this was a huge engineering effort for a couple of little guys, right? So Ken and I were a bit competitive, so the next step for us was to build boats from the native wood that was lying around and race them down the chutes. So the boats were only partially successful. They would sink every now and again. So we decided we needed outriggers on the boats. So we got these pieces of wood, we created outriggers, more balance, and the races continued to tea until tea. So it was a huge amount of fun. So I went back to Gore for the week, and then we came back up again to the Mararoa the following weekend to do more fishing, and obviously another stop at the Bishop camp was part of that trip. So Ken and I immediately went out to the dam and restarted the boat racing that we'd started the week before. And so after a couple of fairly even races, Ken brought out his new invention. It was an outrigger, it was a boat with an outrigger, but he had also created this little paper sail on it that he had spent the entire week perfecting, waiting for me to come back. And for whatever reason, it was a bit of a contraption, but for whatever reason, this boat could really move. And I was losing race after race, which, when you're competitive is not a good thing. So, of course, he was getting great enjoyment out of this. But Ken being Ken, and this is the important point, Ken being Ken, after a few races of me losing, he pulled out a second boat with a sail that he had made just for me, and we spent the rest of the day having lots of fun. So that's just one story, but for me portrays the essence of Ken. And when I think about Ken, it's a person who was very family-oriented, and certainly part of our family. a person who was welcoming, his door was always open, a person who was very kind, he had a big heart, and a person who got immense enjoyment from helping others and seeing them succeed. So what more could you ask from a person, a great man taken way too soon? So from all of us in Canada, Christian, Christine, Caleb, Brent, Sarah, myself, to Suzanne, Joanna, Michael, and your respective families, you have our deepest sympathy. And to Ken, I'll miss you dearly.
Thank you, Trevor. I now invite John Kelk, who was the best man at Suzanne and Ken's wedding, to come forward and share a few thoughts.
My name's John, and Ken and I used to flat together with another guy who we called Pups in Invercargill. The three of us taught at Southland Technical College and Cargill High School. We lived in a dive of a flat. It was appalling, semi-dilapidated. We had to share bathwater, filthy bathwater. And for the record, alone. This building was an ex-brothel. We were visited in the middle of the night by weirdos that affected our REM. We called ourselves neo-greenies because convolvulus grew through the ceiling, wandered across the wall till it met the coal range and died. We drove around Invercargill in Ken's ute, his yellow big ute, on Hotel California, Hotel California, Hotel California, Hotel California. In the weekends, we spent our time in Fiordland and aspiring national parks. We flowed over the land like the wind. We knew individual trees and rocks. And when we weren't in Fiordland in the weekend, we were with Ken's wonderful parents, Joyce and Len, camping, fishing, caravanning, boating. When Ken and I started at Southland Technical College, we had to prove ourselves. We were given all the roughest classes, which means nothing these days. The kids were brilliant. And we were ostracised and marginalised into an area away from central administration, which was great. A whole lot of dilapidated, what do you call those little? Prefabs. Prefabs, thank you. Prefabs. And we were among the most brilliant group of teachers, eccentrics, and we learned so much. We listened, loved, and enjoyed. And perhaps our favourite one was called Spider. His eyes could rotate independently at 365 degrees. He was always pursing his lips. And he was Muldoon-averse. So Ken and I delighted in talking to him about Muldoon all the time, which drove him to drink, his favourite drink being gin. And the next day he would come back to school fuming, not about Muldoon, but about his hangover. When we first went to school with the carless days, which were rotated, Ken and I often went with a staff member's wife. Her taxi uniform was her nightie. She was like a learner driver on steroids. It was terrifying, entertaining, and life-threatening. In the back seat, Ken and I terrorised her son. We made faces and noises. He screamed and cried. The son got blamed for the dog's aberrant behaviour. The dog needed counselling and also a dog dentist. It ran from the front to the back. The decibels were dizzying, and as we arrived to the school car park, we fell out exhausted. We'd thought we'd done a day's work, and we hadn't even met the school, the morning staff meeting. Ken and I were sort of creative anarchists at school. Our HOD had a heart condition, and we put him on a clandestine fitness program. We used to roll rubbish tins down the stairs 3 levels, and he would come running. We used to time how long it took him. His best effort was 1 minute 20 seconds. When Ken and I went running in the lunch hour, we always locked the toilets, put our shoes underneath, and when we came back, we were always guaranteed of an odourless shower. To assuage any feelings of guilt or inconvenience, we'd always drop some coins in the urinal by those pink things. And at the end of the day, the coins were always gone. In staff sports teams, Ken and I were most hopeless at indoor hockey. Our skills were giving away penalties and sinning from the sideline. Ken's skills and ineptitude was hacking from behind. He was very competitive at that. And mine, apparently, intimidation from snorting. I told the umpire that it was nasal genetic. He needed a detention. Ken, it's been a great journey. It's been a privilege. Apart from the bath water, we shared a common name, shared initials, KJB, JGK, taught geography, coached first 15s, were both left-handed. A few years ago, maybe, I wrote a poem, and maybe I wrote it for you. Just want to read it to you now. It's called Koha, and you know that means gift, our gift. Sometimes in a lonely word or a quality of laughter, I look up expecting to see your face, and suddenly I remember that you are no longer here. Between our occasional greetings, your spoken silence, our inner knowing, awareness that you were always there, carried and dignified my wellness. Now, we visit absentia to recall fragments, mend moments, and unite memory, to embrace day and make our lives again worthwhile. Tō manoa e tako manoa, haere rā e hoa, rani maria. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I'd ask Janice Tofia to come to the stage, please. Janice was involved in many areas with Ken and Suzanne, and I'm sure she will explain some of those.
There's a step. Made for the short ones. Okay, thank you, Dan. Tēnā koutou katoa. It's my privilege to add some words to this tapestry of Ken's life that we're creating, although the stitches that I add